Hey guys, Scott here, and today we're going to be talking about the new developer update for DBD, and let's just get right into it. I'm not going to watch the video because I want to talk about the changes, not just watch it. So first off, the clown gameplay update, basically what's happening is they're adding another bottle you can throw. They're overall just buffing it by changing the reload speed from 5 seconds to 3 seconds, which is just good. But they're adding another bottle that's yellow, and basically everyone that walks in it is sped up, including the survivors. So basically, what I think is happening here is they want the clown to create like a dead zone that the survivor has to walk through the purple gas while creating a zone that the clown is supposed to walk through, and you're supposed to be able to get to the survivor with the speed differential before the survivor gets to the yellow gas. So I think that's what's happening, and it's kind of hard to give my opinion on it until I actually play it myself. So I'm going to be a bit tentative on this, but I don't think this is going to change the core gameplay counter to clown, which is essentially just throwing down the pallet early. So I think he's still going to be kind of a slog to go against based on these changes. It just seems like it's exacerbating his current playstyle, which you would handle the same way by throwing pallets down early because you can't really loop it. So I'm not going to judge it too harshly because I need to actually play it first, but it doesn't sound super inspired right now. But, I'll just leave it at that until we actually get a chance to play it, because maybe I'll be wrong. Maybe I'm just missing something here. Next is the HUD update, which I'm definitely not a fan of. I don't really think anyone is a fan of this so far. But see, here's the thing. I don't understand why they even changed this. Like, it says, after 4 years of additions, we felt it was time to rebuild it from the ground up. Why? Like, I feel like they tend to change things that don't need changing, and they don't change things that do need changing quite a bit. Like, how many times, will they just add a random feature, like, hey, let's remove flashlight and pallet sun timings? Why? Nobody asked for that. Let's add, random red screen glare when you get stunned. Why? No one wants that stuff. Like, they just keep adding random things that nobody wants, and I don't know why. I'd rather them just, spend that time balancing old perks and stuff. I get the UI team is not the same as the gameplay balance team. I get that, but I just wish they had allocated their time into things that people wanted a little bit more. So this UI has a couple of positive changes. Basically, the good things are the hook counter, which is awesome. I think everyone's been wanting that for a very long time. And the portraits next to the actual characters, because sometimes you go, wait, did I hook that person? Who's the survivor? And you have to press escape, go to the menu, and see which survivor it is, and then you go, okay. So I think the hook indicator and then the actual portrait changes are awesome, and they should be added to the default UI. And I think they could do that very easily. What they've got going on here is it's like they failed the fundamentals of UI design. Like a person, I'm gonna go into it anymore. Basically, you want your UI to be simple, compact, and basically all in one spot, so the player can just go, I'm looking at the UI now. I'm looking at the UI. This is literally everywhere. The stuff in the bottom middle, stuff in the bottom left, stuff in the middle left, stuff in the top right, or top left, stuff in the top middle. The only area that's not having shit is the top right. Fuck it. Let's put the killer's lore there in the top right, just so we can have shit literally everywhere. It just doesn't look good. I think this looks objectively bad, and they need to revert this, because there's just simply no reason for it. The old UI worked great. Here's what I don't understand. They said after 4 years of additions, we felt it was time to change. They haven't changed the UI. Nothing's been added to the UI in 4 years. I don't know what this sentence means. The only massive UI changes that have happened were the perks were horizontal on the bottom right. That was the early versions of the game. Other than that, I can't really think of anything that's changed. Unless they're talking about killer-specific things, just overlays, like the Razor overlay with, Pyramid Head, or the Plague overlay. Those are just fucking PNGs. They just slap on top of that. That's not a huge HUD change. It's just killer-specific status effects. They haven't changed the UI at all. And for good reason. It's a good UI. It works perfectly. I think they never needed to change the UI, so I don't know why they did this. It looks like a shitty mobile game, to be honest. So I think what they should do is take the new positive things they added, which is the hook indicator and the portraits, and just simply add it to the existing UI. I think everyone will love that. Everything will be basically the same, but we'll have new useful information that everyone can benefit from, and that would just be a net positive. Everyone would love that. So that is my suggestion for that. That would be great, in my opinion. They're also adding UI scaling, which is nice, because I've had very tiny UI for a very long time since I run at high resolution, so that's awesome. Now, Wait, I didn't even read this part. They added... Oh, that's what the top right space is for. It's for our webcams when we're streaming. Okay. Well, it's excellent now. Survivor Locomotion animation update. Basically, what this is doing, this is more kind of for console players. It's smoothing the movement between slower and faster movement speeds and slower and faster animations. PC players cannot really control this. They simply go or don't go, so we're not going to notice this as much. However, it does affect certain things like animations combining into each other, like a flashlight being raised into a certain direction is now going to be smoother. So from a game review objective standpoint, this is an improvement and it's awesome. From a player meme standpoint, I don't like this because some of the funniest shit you can do was basically like with broken just like broken animations where you would just like you would click a flashlight here, be looking this way, and you'd be like tick, 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 like it would just look so stupid. So I'm gonna miss that stuff. It was very good for memes, but I have to say this is actually an improvement to the game, as biased as I am towards silliness. So that's a good thing. I don't think really anyone is ever complaining about the visuals of the game. The visuals of the game are usually actually pretty damn good. So for that, I have no complaints. Next, let's get into some meaty stuff. Matchmaking rating and rank rewards. This is a funny sentence. Starting with some good news, matchmaking ratings are returning in the near future. I don't think anybody thinks this is a good idea. I think the matchmaking ratings were considered a universal failure. Even people that supported the idea of it to begin with thought, okay, this is dog shit, because people with 3,000 hours were going against people with 20 minutes in the game frequently, and it never stopped. Even after playing hundreds of games, you would still encounter the same exact stuff. So whatever they did didn't work whatsoever. I have no faith in them to do it correctly, because I don't even understand how to do it correctly, and I think it's not bragging or arrogant to say I probably understand the game a little bit better than some of their designers. I don't even know how to do it correctly. I don't think you can do it correctly. So I have no faith that this will work. And I feel like they don't have faith it's going to work either, because they don't talk about it. They don't talk about how it's going to work. They don't talk about what variables they're going to be looking at. They don't talk about anything. They just say it's going to work. And that's it. This link where they talk about more matchmaking ratings more, this is from July. This is just the same shit they talked about before where they didn't talk about anything. So I'd feel so much better if they discussed how this system worked loosely. I'm not saying tell me details so we can game the system, but just give me very basic details. Is it just counting wins? What is a win? How does it work differently with Killer and Survivor? Just give us basic details so we have a little bit of faith that this system will work, because right now nobody has any faith that this will work. And you can't just say, well, we've been hard at work making it better. How? Just tell us how it's going to be better. Rank rewards are cool. These are actually pretty minor, to be honest. 250,000 blood points is basically 5 games of Killer with barbecue and chili. It's not really that much. So I kind of wish there were bigger rank rewards. They're extremely stingy with blood points, I think, with how many perks and perk levels there are and all this stuff. So I think the rewards for hitting rank 1 should be higher. Not that it's hard to get rank 1, but at least there'll be some incentive. 250k, like I said, is basically 4 or 5 games as Killer. That's not really that much, but it's better than 0 things. So I suppose it's a net gain. I just wish they did a bit more with it. Here's some graphic updates to the Asylum and to the game. I don't. These is just concept art. This is like an E3 trailer. It doesn't mean anything. So when we see the actual gameplay, I'm sure we'll be able to draw some judgments on it. Now, the actual visual changes that they made so far have been pretty great. So I have no doubt this will be great as well. But I mean, as cool as this looks, this is just concept art. It doesn't really mean anything. So now let's go on to the smaller changes. The Wraith True Invisibility. This is something a lot of people have been asking for a long time. Personally, this is not at the top of my change list for Wraith. For me, the most important change they can make to Wraith was removing the need for him to have the Windstorm add-on, because you need the Windstorm add-on to play Wraith. If you don't, you are just so much weaker. It's like playing Trapper without any bag. He's a terrible killer without Windstorm. So, in that scenario, I think they definitely should have addressed that. Maybe they will in time before he comes out. I don't know. But this is still a cool change. Basically, it's like Freddy, where at a distance he flickers. Now at a distance, the Wraith's completely invisible. When he gets closer, he's more and more visible. So that'll help him on big, wide open maps like Rotten Fields and stuff like that. He can sneak up on people a bit better. So it's an objective buff. It's a good thing. I just don't think this is the most important thing to buff about the Wraith. But I'll take it, because Wraith needs buffs, and if they're giving him anything, I will definitely take it. So, Trapper, they're basically reducing the RNG, which I think is great. Any chance that they have to reduce the RNG in this game, I think is a very good idea. So basically, they're making it less likely to escape on your first attempts and more likely to escape on your later attempts. Just basically rounding out the average time. So you'll have to spend probably a bit more time and you don't immediately get out, which is, I think, great, because how painful is it when you're playing Trapper? Someone goes in a trap, they get out immediately, and you've accomplished nothing. It's a terrible feeling. So that is good, I think. And it'll help the really unlucky people that struggle for 14 times in a row and don't get out. Deep Wounds is now 20 seconds across the board. Okay, that's fine. I don't think that really changes too much, because the most important thing is, you know, when you're running, the timer doesn't go down. Flop Quest is still okay. Everyone's fine, so nothing terrible has happened. Diversion's a bit easier to get now. Cool, sure. Fixated, the whole issue with getting injured and not retaining it is fixed now. That's great. Next, Undying. So, obviously, this is a big one. I stopped using Undying like a week after it came out because I knew it was going to get nerfed, so I'm like, I'm just going to get used to playing without it, because, in my opinion, it was too good. It did too much. It was Thrill of the Hunt and Retribution and another rune. It just did simply too many things. They needed to nerf some aspect of it, whether it was the amount of respawns, the aura reading, or something like that. It was just too good, and I really, really invite you to debate otherwise that it wasn't too good and compare it to other Hex perks. Compare it to Thrill of the Hunt or Lullaby or something like that, and tell me that Undying was not infinitely better than these perks. I know you can say, well, it's totally fine, but let's buff those perks instead, and I can agree with that as well. But the problem with Undying is it exacerbated the RNG issue. For example, if you got Undying and it was the first totem broken, and then Rune was the second totem broken, okay, now you're down 2 perks and you only had 2 totem breaks. In that scenario, Undying doesn't feel very overpowered. It just feels like you kind of delayed your Rune a bit, which is still useful, but it doesn't feel OP. However, on the other games where you're getting very lucky and the survivors have to break 5 totems to get rid of your Rune, basically, or 4 totems to get rid of your Rune, that is ridiculous. Your Rune should not be able to last that long with 0 effort on your part. It's basically 0 effort, massive game delay, because Rune, when it's up, is incredibly strong. It's the best game delay perk in the game. Its saving grace is that you can just break it. Undying made that not the case if you were unlucky, and I think that is what they're trying to get, out. So basically now, you're limited to 1 respawn. Maybe that it was a bit too harsh on the other side. I suggested limit it to 2 respawns, but I'm not going to complain, because I think Undying was just ridiculous. However, they're giving you a caveat now where your tokens are retained. So if you want to run Lullaby or more prominently Devour Hope, now your tokens will remain, so you can actually protect your Devour Hope and the stacks that are on it, which is actually a huge buff to Devour Hope if you're using that combo. So I think overall this is fine. They also nerfed the aura reading to just dull totems instead of removing it entirely, which I'm surprised of, so that's still very good that it has some aura reading. I think overall these changes to Undying are pretty good, actually. I think this is fine. You still get an extra rune. You can now have a buffed version of Devour Hope that has an extra life. I think overall, surprisingly, this is a pretty good change. I think maybe I would have made it 2 tokens instead of 1, or 2 respawns instead of 1, basically, but I still like this. I think this is good. I think killers that relied on Rune Undying probably need to take a step back and realize how much it was giving you for free a lot of the time if you got lucky. So yeah, I've seen so many games that the only reason they win is because their Rune Undying lasts for every single totem, and that's just simply not a good feeling to have. So, but it's not a good feeling to have your gens go at 2 seconds. I think this is a good change. If you really hate it, go back to using Pop and Corrupt. Still excellent game delay perks, but I think Undying definitely needed to get hit with something because it was a little ridiculous. Iron Maiden has been buffed, so its exposed timer is now 30 seconds, which is good because it was useless. It was a terrible useless perk back in the day, and now 30 seconds of exposed is not negligible anymore. Now, going into a locker and leaving the locker will give the killer some time to actually get there, and you may actually go down because of it. So, I don't think I'll still ever use it, but it is now no longer a complete joke. I think it actually has some marginal uses. Open-handed as basically just simply had a numerical buff, which is interesting. I think open-handed is one of the more interesting perks in the game, to be honest, because there are very few perks that directly modify other perks like that. So, I don't know if you've ever seen a Kindred open-handed, but it's pretty funny. You can see the killer from, like, a massive distance. So, things like that are really, really cool. and I am all for a change to that. And they're reducing the time for second wind takes to heal you. Just a simple numerical buff to second wind. So a lot of these perk changes and pretty much all these changes in this section have been pretty good. I actually like these. Everything in the miscellaneous section has been pretty good. I don't really have any complaints, which is honestly pretty rare. I think they did a good job with this stuff. There's a lot of other stuff that needs addressing, I think, but for what they've given us so far, I think it's overall good. The UI is terrible. I hope they don't change, or hope they do change that. Animation things are great. Clown is, we'll see. Overall, not bad. I think I'm pretty excited for this PTB. I'm not excited for matchmaking ratings. I think this is going to tank the game again, but for the most part, everything else seems pretty good. So overall, good job on this, and I'm excited to play the PTB, and I'm curious to hear your guys' thoughts on all this stuff. But that is it. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.